Welcome to the University of Illinois Extension Specialty Food Producers Seminar Series. Today we continue the series with our second seminar entitled Cottage Law Specialty Food Seminar. I'm Terry Miller, Publicity and Promotion Specialist with the University of Illinois Extension Unit 18, and I'm joining you from the Christian County Extension Office in Taylorville. I am very pleased to introduce Lisa Peterson, Nutrition and Wellness Educator for the University of Illinois Extension, who will be presenting today. Lisa, you have the floor.
All right. Well, Lisa, we're a little bit unique today. We've got some people in our Hillsborough office, so we've got me here who's going to be teaching it. But for those who haven't met me, my name is Lisa Peterson. I'm the Nutrition and Wellness Educator for Montgomery, Macoupin, Christian, and Jersey County. So I'm kind of all over the place in our 4 counties. But today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about cottage food operation law. Has anyone here sold food at a farmer's market? You know. Oh, good. So we got some newbies in here. Alrighty. So the first thing we'll kind of bring you into is what is the cottage food law. So the cottage food law, and before I get too far here, you do have my entire PowerPoint with you. I put it in your folder, and so it should be right in the top. Might be different in the Hillsborough folders, but I know it's in there. And then across from it, there's also just more of a fact sheet for you. So kind of a Q&A if you've got more questions on what you can and cannot sell and more information. But first off, what is the cottage food law? The cottage food law is businesses selling non-potentially hazardous foods, and I will go into more detail on that, at a farmer's market in Illinois. That's cut and dry what our cottage law is. Foods that are prepared in a domestic home, meaning that they are not inspected. So the health department doesn't come in and give you a grade on your home. Some people that might be a little scared if they did that. But they don't come in and they don't grade you at all. One thing they do require, though, if you want to sell at a farmer's market, is you must hold a food service sanitation management certificate. And hopefully, I'm in the process of finally finishing my application. I used to teach a version of this in South Dakota, but as of this summer, I'm hoping I will be offering that course as well. So extension will be one. So if you call the health department, we'll hopefully be the place you'll be sent to for a class near you.
Did they used to do it?
Mm-hmm. Yep, they used to before. Then they didn't have an educator for so many years, and now they're coming back. So right now we do offer them still in Decatur, and I know they're offering the Paris, Illinois area, but that's kind of a drive for people in our central region. So yeah, I'm excited that I'll be able to offer it. And food safety is a huge part of my master's, so that's one of my biggest things with my background. But again, so that's one thing they do require with being a cottage food operator. And then the other thing is you must register with your county health department. And what it is, it's a simple application you fill out, and you attach your food service sanitation management certificate with it. And it's a $25 fee. I did call the Christian County Health Department, and they were helpful to me and told me how much the fee is. And I asked them, like, so if I come in and I fill out the application, attach that form, that sanitation form, and pay $25, will you give me it? And they said, yeah. They're like, well, okay your application, and then you'll have your certificate to go to the farmer's market. And the other thing, this one actually has been brought up, the price did. It used to be $25,000, but now gross receipts must not exceed $36,000 per year.
How do you know if it's your first year? Do you just have to quit when you get there?
Yeah, basically it's going to be a little trial and error for you to see how well your business does.
If you go?
You'd have to go talk to the health department about it, because under the cottage food law, you can't go over 36. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So there is a new exception to this rule. It's hard to see up there, but where do we sell cottage food? The one place you can sell it in Illinois is the farmer's market. And I even put on the bottom here, is delivered directly to the consumer. In other words, under our cottage law, you cannot sell them over the internet, through retail, through restaurants, mail order, wholesaler, or other distributor. So I really kind of went into detail, and again, if you want even more details, there is some more in the information I provided you today. But there is a new exception to this. So somebody who is a farmer and wants to sell under a cottage food law, they can do that. The cottage food operation must have a locally grown agriculture product at their farm as the main ingredient. So in other words, if they want to sell at the farmer's market, or they want to sell foods they're making. So I always give the example of somebody who does orchards. And they have a lot of apples, and that's what they grow is apples. If they want to sell apple butter at their farm, they can, under a cottage food law.
At their market?
Yes. Yep, but it's got to be direct.
Food, right? This is not like
No, this is all food. Yep. Yep. And I will talk dry herbs are the only thing that I really talk about outside of food. But again, it's still food.
Ingest.
Yeah, it's still something you ingest. Hello there.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Thank you for joining us today.
Sorry, I'm a little late.
Don't worry about it.
Migraine this week, so.
Oh, that hasn't been bad.
Someone
Yeah.
else just canceled that.
Yeah.
You know what it is? It's spring trees. I know what it is.
Oh, this weather's not nice to us.
No.
But yeah, so at a farm, you can sell, cottage foods are sold mainly at a farmer's market, with the exception of being a farmer. So if you are at a farm and you produce your main ingredient, so apples, for example, and you want to sell apple butter, you can, but you still have to follow the same spot cottage food. So you have to have labeling correctly, you have to do everything the same. And it has to be directly to the consumer. So again, you still can't sell it online or anything crazy like that.
So your main outlet would be the farmer's market?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this can be in addition to?
Yeah, right. So what can be sold? So foods that can be sold, as I said earlier, it's non-potentially hazardous foods. And when I say non-potentially hazardous, what I really mean is food that does not need time or temperature control. So it's foods that we don't have to put in the fridge, or foods that can't sit out for more than 2 hours without making us really sick. So and again, they go into extreme detail in here on what you can and cannot make. So high acid jams, preserves, and jellies can all be sold at a farmer's market. So they can be ones you make. So here are my examples here, and once again, they go into more detail on our handouts. But apples, apricots, grapes, peach, plum, basically a lot of berries. And you can do a combination of them. So if you do have a jam it's a family favorite, it's one that's been tested, it's a scientifically tested recipe, it's fine to use at a farmer's market.
So you couldn't do hot pepper jam?
No, peppers cannot be sold at a farmer's market because they don't have a high enough acidity where it can make people sick.
Is it okay to ask you questions?
Oh yeah, please do, yeah.
So if you were, say, using walnuts or something that you produced that were grown on your farm and you wanted to include them in fudge, or in vanity, or some type of candy, would they?
I'll go into more detail on baked goods here in a second, because some of those things, it's got to be on that list of label too. And again, it's potentially hazardous where if it's out for so long, it's going to make someone sick, you can't sell it.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, please,
It's
go on.
hard, but do all of these products have to be grown by you?
Yes. Yep. They've got to be produced by the consumer. So additionally, can you sell fruit butters? You can. Fruit butters are another one you can sell at the farmer's market. So the apples, apricots, grapes, again, they're the high acid fruits that you can sell. Other flavors that are not allowed, this has actually been a change with the IDPH, Illinois Department of Public Health. But recipes that you have that have been tested by a certified kitchen, and I've been trying to get a hold of IDPH, and that would be the next person to go to find a certified kitchen, or certified laboratory, I should say. So if you have a recipe you want to sell, and you're pretty sure it has a pH below 4.6, you have to have it certified to make sure that it is safe to sell.
Lisa, we have a question from Hillsborough. What about maple syrup, maple from a tree?
That is a good question. Maple syrup.
What was the pH you said?
The pH has to be below 4.6. I would have to look into that and get back to them. That would be something I'd have to check with IDPH to double check. Because if it's not on these lists, it's probably a no. So that's what I'm going to say right now.
I'm going to unmute them
Yeah.
so that they can go into detail. Hold on a second.
Yeah, syrups, you would have to check with IDPH, because I know that if it's not on their list of approved cottage foods, that they typically don't allow it.
What was your other question about the wall?
I asked what the answer was.
We didn't hear about the walnut answer. Could you clarify the answer about the walnuts?
I'm going to go into that. She asked about having walnuts, say, in fudge or in some kind of baked good. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes, because I'll go further into baked goods and what you can and cannot sell. So hopefully I'll have a better answer for you as we get closer here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so those are going into fruit butters. So up here it says a pH of a value of less than 4.6. Again, if you're making your own jam and you're not sure about a pH, you can go and get it tested in a commercial laboratory, and they'll be able to tell you. And like I said, I'm looking into it as to where the commercial laboratories are, because some universities do it. Unfortunately, ours does not. University of Illinois doesn't test canned goods, but if you can find one in the Springfield area, I'm sure that'll be the next place. Springfield or St. Louis, I'm sure has them.
So we can eventually get in touch with you.
Yeah, yep. And I can provide you with more information, hopefully. I'm working with the Illinois Stewardship Alliance, and they're trying to help me find locations. So if people do want to get some recipes tested, make sure they're safe to sell. Dry herbs, you can sell those at a farmer's market. Again, so if you're growing herbs and you have a lot of them, those are great ones to sell at a farmer's market. You can do it at dry herbs, a dry herb blend, or dry tea blends. So if you're somebody who grows tea leaves, that's something fun you can sell at a farmer's market. And that's completely allowed as long as you follow with their labeling.
Yeah. Now, what do you mean by tea leaves? What are tea leaves?
Well, you can make chamomile tea,
Yep.
lemon balm tea.
Okay, so you could make the leaves out of the tea out of the herbs,
Mhm.
like Tivana.
Yep.
That has fruit and all different things, and that's very little.
It'd be like black leaves and green leaves and things like that. So things you would grow in your...
We can't grow tea.
Yeah.
No, we
Some
can
might be a
grow
little more
tea.
uncommon here.
No, which the tea leaves does.
Yeah.
Chamomile tea, lemon tea,
As long as they're dry.
Verbena, lemon balm.
Yep.
There's,
peppermint, bee balm makes.
Bee balm, yep.
there's, yeah,
Yep.
mints.
Yeah, mints, that's a great thing to sell.
Like dried fruits in it, I don't think that one.
Dried, yeah, you'd have to double check. Water activity is another big thing with them, is making sure that it's a water activity of less than 8.5. And that would be a certified kit. You'd have to get it
I
checked.
don't know water activity.
Water activity, we're talking about how much liquid is in that product. So when we dry something out, we talk about how much liquid is still present in there. So with fruit, dried fruit, that's something that we're very concerned about, is making sure that there's not a lot of liquid in there. So the more liquid that's in there, the more chance bacteria can grow. So that goes along with that. pH has to be below 4.6, and water activity has to be below 0.85. So there can't be...
Like the percent of water.
Yes, percent of water in there. So it's got to be less than 85%. So here we're going a little bit into the baked goods, like you had mentioned. So wanting to sell, what can you sell for baked goods? So breads, cookies, cakes, they're all allowed at a farmer's market, as long as they're covered again, and you're following proper labeling with them. High acid fruit pies, you can sell fruit pies at a farmer's market. And again, I give you a long list here, and they're all high acid fruit. So apples, apricots, a bunch of berries, combination of these. You can sell those. No, nothing that could be potentially hazardous foods. So pumpkin pie, you cannot sell at a farmer's market because it should be in the fridge. Anytime you're making a pie that requires eggs in it or any type of dairy or something that you would usually throw in the fridge, like chiffon pies, that can't be sold at a farmer's market because it's unsafe to be sitting out for more than a couple hours.
So you have to grow all of these fruits in order to make these pies to sell?
Oh, no. You can, yeah, sorry, yeah. No, oh lordy, yeah. No, yeah, you don't have to grow all the ingredients.
Okay.
No, sorry. Did they catch that over in Hillsborough?
Yes, they want to make sure you know you don't have to grow all of these ingredients yourself.
Oh, yeah, I just want to make sure we're clarified here. Yes, no, you don't have to throw them all.
Because I wrote must be produced by you.
Yeah, no.
I think you meant the end product.
Yeah, the
yes.
end product must be produced by you, as in you can't sell something that, yes.
That you purchased.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, glad we're clarifying this now. That got really confusing later. But yeah, so breads, cookies, cakes, they can all be sold. I believe in your handout, I'm trying to figure out which one it was. I think it's your Cottage Food Law fact sheet here. It goes into even more detail on these for what you can't sell, or what you can sell and what you can't sell. So going into, we talk about baked goods permitted. So if you look on that handout, it's the Illinois Cottage Food Operation Law fact sheet. And I'm hoping everybody has one there in Hillsborough. And if you go to page 2, it goes through the non-potentially hazardous foods. So that's the list of things you are allowed to sell at a farmer's market. And I said they do pretty good on details. But you notice here, fudge isn't one of the things listed. And usually if it's not listed, it's It's not allowed. So it's not limited to, but again, if you do have additional questions, I can always call IDPH and ask them to double check. And fudge is one I would, but I'm thinking if they probably wouldn't allow it, being with the heat and everything else that's out there, that'd probably melt sitting out too long. But breads, cookies, cakes, fruit pies, if you have muffins or pastries you make, you can sell them at the farmer's market. So those give you some other options there as well. Going further into that, the food's not permitted. So my long list up here, any food defined as potentially hazardous, which going back to that fact sheet, it is all on page 1, and we shortened it a little bit on that one in the box.
Lisa, we have a question here. Is rhubarb allowed, or is it not allowed if it's not on the list?
Rhubarb is not allowed. No rhubarb is allowed to be sold at a farmer's market.
Okay, thank you.
The problem with rhubarb is it's got a pH that's it's a little bit above 4.6, and that's what makes it unsafe, is we can't just can it as we would everything else, because it doesn't stay safe enough, it doesn't stay stable enough, because bacteria can grow a lot faster.
But could you make strawberry rhubarb jelly?
Not sold at a farmer's market.
Rhubarb muffins,
Rhubarb cannot be sold at a farmer's market.
not in any form, because you know I bought some.
We have
There's been a few things where I've been at the farmer's market and I'm like, they're not supposed to be selling that. And the reason it is if the health department is out there, they will find somebody for it.
A
So
produce seller can't sell it?
that's a little different.
Okay.
We're talking about like if we're talking about if we're putting it in something. So if you're making fruit butters, for example, like you can't put rhubarb in your butter and sell it as a cottage law. So meat, of course, we know we can't sell meat at a farmer's market. Anytime you're pressure canning a food, it can't be sold at a farmer's market. And again, it's a concern with botulism and the fact that with when we boiling, and we'll talk about it a little bit later too, but when we create a food with a boiling water bath canner, usually it's high enough in acid where it'll prevent bacteria from growing really fast. When you have to do a pressure canning, that's because that food doesn't have a lot of acid to it, so it has to go to a really, really high temperature to kill the bacteria. And what we've considered is it makes people really sick really, really fast. You're more likely to get botulism from a food that has to be pressure canned than one that's boiling water bath. So these are the ones that are not allowed. So butters made with pumpkin, rhubarb, tomato. So again, and going even further with that tomato, what do you think is another thing that's made with tomato that you can't sell? Salsa.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yep, salsa cannot be sold under a cottage food law. Even if you're boiling water bath canning it, you still can't sell it and because there's tomatoes in it, and that's why.
What about elderberry?
Elderberry is good to sell. You can, yep, you can do elderberries. We have those. Those are great. But also heated treat plants. I have plant food on there. Baked or boiled potatoes, of course. Cut leaf greens under the cottage law, you cannot sell them. Cut tomatoes, you cannot sell. Cut melon.
But you can sell them all.
Yes. Yep, because the thing is, once you cut into them, bacteria grow so fast inside of them that we can't watch what's going to happen to them. Okay, so we're going to do a quick review on these. So what can and cannot you sell? So if I'm at a farmer's market, can I sell canned chicken?
No.
No, you cannot sell canned chicken at a farmer's market. Blueberry jelly?
Yes.
Yes, you can sell blueberry jelly at the farmer's market. Pickled asparagus?
Yes. No, it says nothing pickled.
Yep.
And I thought vinegar was.
You think that vinegar, at home it's fine. It's just when you're selling it to other people. Yeah, it's something that's going to prevent us from getting sick. How about cinnamon pumpkin butter? No. Nope. How about cranberry apple jam?
Yes.
Yes. I forget you have to keep along with me here.
That's right, I figured it out.
Keeping her awake over here.
That's right.
Strawberry pie.
Yes.
Yes. Yep. Strawberry pie is still okay. You're doing a fruit pie. Diced canned tomatoes.
No.
No. How about cheesecake?
No.
Nope. There's that jalapeno pepper jelly.
No.
Nope. Garlic herb oil.
No.
Nope. Can't sell oils at the farmer's market. How about coconut cream pie? Nope. And homemade dried Italian seasoning.
Yes.
Yeah, yep. Create your own seasoning and sell it at the farmer's market.
Can you smell vinegars, like thick flavored vinegars?
No, that'd be another potentially hazardous one.
We're all going to be smelling strawberry
We're gonna have a lot of strawberry pies at our farmer's market.
outside. I was ever going to do it.
If you have a lot of jams, if you're doing a lot of berries, so if you have a giant patch of blueberries or raspberries or something, this is a great thing, especially if you have younger grandkids or kids to sell them with, because they can create fun things and then go sell them at the farmer's market.
But you can't do freezer jams.
No, freezer jams cannot be
They don't
sold.
mention that here.
Nope.
That's strawberries.
Yep.
They say it has to be in a water bath.
Yeah, we do talk about boiling water bath. Okay, so we're gonna go into labeling. Yeah.
I did jams for a while, and then I never forget them. You know, Joel was sterilizing, all the wiping up on the top, putting the funnel in, putting the top on, and still I couldn't get them to, like, later on when I unscrewed it.
To set?
Not to set, but to keep.
To keep?
Yeah. So how do we know that if someone has made jam and it's been on the counter for a month, that we don't open it up and it's moldy? I mean, that's not an unusual thing.
Yep, and that's
So-
when you check the seal, that's going to be the best way to tell if it's going to be good. Because if it wasn't sealed, there's going to be mold in there.
That's pop.
Yep. When we seal it, and it'll have a nice, either you'll be able to tell because it'll be a slightly incline in your jar, like it'll be kind of a scoop.
Yeah.
And it won't make any kind of bubbling noise or anything like that, or when you hit the top of it, it won't bounce back. So that's a good way to know if it's sealed or not. And of course, when you pull it off, it makes a seal sound, it's probably sealed. So. Yeah, I will go through just right at the end. We'll kind of briefly talk about boiling water bath canning for anyone who would still like to do it. Any questions?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, so going into the labeling. If you do want to sell at the farmer's market, and again, this is all cottage food, it must follow the Illinois Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. So going through the step-by-step here, the name and address of the cottage food operation must be on that label, and it cannot be a P.O. box. That's something to keep in mind, and it cannot be out of state. So if you're going to sell in Illinois and you have family who live in St. Louis, you cannot sell it out of state. So you cannot have a Missouri address on that jar or on that pie. Common name of product and ingredient and weight, so that'd be net weight. So that would be either in grams or milligrams, and we'll talk about that, and I do an example here coming up. All ingredients must be, with every other label, it must be in descending order. So what's the heaviest thing in your product? Is it the fruit? Is it, and that's why we tell you to have a scale if you're starting to make things, just so you know what the heaviest is. You're not like, my berries feel a little heavier than my sugar. So you're not sitting there trying to figure that out. The allergen is labeled. So, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. We'll go into it a little bit more in detail, just making sure you have on there if an allergen does occur in your food product. So that would be like soy or wheat or dairy or milk, something like that.
Not nuts, nuts.
Nuts will be on here. Yep, that would be another one you want. If there's any kind of trace in there, if there might be, that would be something to put on there. And the date it was made. So you have to have a date that was processed on there. And then the other thing you want to make sure it's on there, and usually people put this right at the top, it just has to be on there somewhere. This product is produced in a home kitchen and not subject to a public health inspection. Just so everyone knows that it isn't something, it wasn't produced in a certified kitchen. So there's our, talking about that food allergens. The cottage food label must identify, so milk, eggs, wheat, peanuts, soybean, fish, crustaceans, tree nuts. So those are some of our big ones that we consider with allergens. So anytime you're making with those type of things, they've got to be on your label. And they can either be on your label just within your label, or it says on the bottom contains, and then you can go through. I think it's a little easier to almost put it at the bottom, just because that's when you can really bolden it and make it see what allergens are in there.
Right on that other one, it just said contains soy, but
Yep.
you were saying milk, eggs, all those things, so you'd have to list everything.
Well, if it contains that. So that product up there only contains soy. It doesn't have wheat in it.
But
It
I'm
doesn't
saying,
have.
if you were gonna say contains, you'd be listing all the
Yeah.
products again. I mean, all
Yep.
the ingredients again.
Yep. Yep. Well, you have the option. You can put it either in your ingredient list or you can just put it on the bottom. Yep. So if you want to put it just within there, that's fine. Otherwise, you can put it right at the bottom. So here's an example of a label that was done here. So again, it's right on the top. It says this product was produced in a home kitchen, not subject to public health inspection, and it was also processed common food allergens. And then it's got the typical name of the product, so very basic, saying what it is. And then the net weight, and they did ounces and grams on theirs. Then they put the ingredients as they're listed. And as you can see on this one, they did do both. They put it up in there so that enriched flour with the wheat flour and everything is listed. And then the contains is on there as well.
Is it necessary to do what's inside of the parentheses, or can you just list enriched?
You can just list enriched flour. Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to be quite as detailed as they were. Just as long as you have all the ingredients on there, that's the important part. And then they have their name on there, and then of course their address and the production date. So, moving to this one here. Hopefully they can see that okay in the other county. But this is an example. So is this product labeled correctly?
Cottage.
Yep, there's 3 things missing from this. Can you name the 3 that were missing?
Wait.
Yep, you know, so the first one you said was the disclaimer, so saying that it was produced in a home kitchen. So that guy's not on there. You said the weight, so weight's not on there. So we're missing after raspberry jam.
The date.
The date, yep.
But that other one probably did have a date.
Yep. And you're missing the processing date, so you don't know when it was produced. So those are the things that have to be on your label. No matter if you're doing jam, if you're doing pie, these have to be on your label. So this is a kind of a fun one, and I've experienced this being done wrong at a couple farmers markets. But sampling. So if you want to go to the farmers market and you want to offer samples to people, the samples must be prepared at home. So you can't come to the farmer's market, open your jam in front of them, and take a spoon and hand it to somebody. They've got to be handled at home and put into small containers and covered, and then brought to the farmer's market.
I've never seen that.
Yeah!
Yeah, like sometimes they have like one thing and everybody's
Not quite sanitarian, not quite following the sampling laws. But these are only been these laws have been effective as of 2011, I believe, in Illinois. So they are still relatively new for the state, and I think there's about 11 states who currently still do not have cottage food laws.
So even stores do that when you look at it to bread shape.
Yeah, and that's a little
There's a
different.
container of oil and bread next to it, and so everybody's sort of dipping into the oil.
Yeah.
Because those baguettes that are just open.
Can they do that in the store, or do they have different rules?
Yes,
They have different rules. Yeah, they're not following cottage food laws. Yeah, they have different laws with that within their own restaurant. That's the
As
one
their
they
kitchen
can.
inspected.
Yeah, they got a certified kitchen in there, and they're a little bit more temperature controlled, and there's less chances of bugs being in there too than being at a farmer's market. But yeah, samples must be prepared at home. Like I said, operator must prepare samples and make sure they have lids on them or they're individually packaged in a home kitchen. And then labels are not required. You don't just put any type of label on your samples. Because it's nice to have them out, though. It is recommended at least maybe have a sign just with the information, just in case you have a little kid who runs up there and is allergic to peanuts, and that's what he grabs is something that had peanuts in it. So that's something to think about as well.
It's anywhere when they have to touch it. They just walk.
Yeah, they smell it and they have a rash.
They do, because, or they carry EpiPens with them, and some schools have to have separate tables for children who
Yes.
have allergies, peanut allergies.
Yep. Okay, so this is the local health department again. Every county is a little different when it comes to these rules and how they're enforced. But ours are pretty similar to what I'm kind of talking about today. I did double check these with our health department, but they invoke cessation, I can't even say it, of laws if they receive a complaint from somebody in the community, they can take away your cottage law license pretty easily here. If a product has been deemed to be misbranded, altercated, and is not compliant with the cottage food law, of course they'll end it then as well. They may, upon providing a written statement by the Illinois Department of Public Health, take additional regulatory measures. As I said, here in Montgomery County, or here in Christian County and Montgomery, they do charge a $25 fee for getting your license to sell, and then grant access to operations in the event of a consumer complaint. So again.
That means they can come and look at your kitchen.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So they do want to come look and see just to make sure everything's still safe. I mean, because you're not working in a certified kitchen, and I think that's a pretty extreme for a health department to need to do that. But it's usually they'll just take away the license. Okay, so going a little bit further into the safe food handling. So I'm going to talk a little bit about making sure your kitchen is safe. So again, you're not being inspected by anybody, but it's just a couple general practice rules to follow when you are working in your home kitchen and preparing for food for not just the public, for family as well, but making sure everything is safe. Just to go a little further with that, why I'm talking about it, 1 in 6 Americans today will get sick from food poisoning, and I always like to throw out that this is the ones that are documented. We don't actually know, because I mean, the norovirus is a form of food poisoning. So people could easily get sick that way. The problem is more serious than people realize. Food poisoning not only sends over 100,000 Americans to the hospital each year, it has long-term consequences. It can cause paralysis. It can cause, I always think of paralysis, death.
Nerve damage.
Yeah, nerve damage. That's a big one.
Liver damage.
Liver damage, nerve damage. Yep. So it's really scary if we miss some of these little steps. And like I said, with norovirus being going around so badly here, washing hands, I've never pushed it more. So those foodborne bacteria, there's 2 different types. There's the kind that we can see. So of course, we always think of strawberries getting really furry. We can see that stuff, our Alaskan strawberries. We can tell when they go bad. They either have an off smell or an off taste, but they rarely make us sick. The stuff that makes us sick, scary, is the stuff we can't see. And that's what we call pathogenic bacteria. So that it's odorless, it's tasteless, you never know it's in your food. And that's the scary part about it. That's why I want people to be very careful when they're cooking and preparing food and making sure we're getting it to the right temperature. Even with jams and jellies, we want to make sure of that.
I read some holidays and someone wrote in and asked if there is one moldy strawberry in a container, does that contaminate the whole container? And do you have to throw the entire container away? Can you take that strawberry out and wash the other ones if they're fine? Do you know?
I would. I honestly, I think you'd be okay if you take that moldy strawberry out.
Okay.
And I would still inspect every other strawberry in there, but yeah. Yep. It's kind of like apples, the one bad apple that makes everything go bad because it happens so fast that if you have one bad apple, you take it out and the rest are still fine, they're going to be fine. So what happens with apples is the ethylene releases and it gets into everything, but usually you'll be okay. So I will talk on this chart too, going back to that foodborne bacteria. There's something out there called the Kitchen Companion, which is available through the USDA. If you just Google it, that's the best way I've told people to get about, because it's a pretty big book. I think it's about 20 pages or so. And it goes into a lot of detail about home kitchens and keeping your kitchen as safe as you can. And that also gives you storage information as well to go along with it. But yeah, it's called the Kitchen Companion, and it's sold through you can either buy the book or you can print it off. So you can just, if you're looking for one little thing, you can get the PDF of the book and look it up. Oh, that's pretty. That's okay. So when cooking in your kitchen, these are the 4 tips we're always going to tell you to do: to clean, separate, cook, and chill. And I'm going to go into more detail on each of these here in the next slide. But keeping it clean, so before you do any kitchen chores, wash your hands with warm water for 20 seconds. And again, we're talking about every part of your hand. We want to make sure you get your wrist really good, but 20 seconds under the water. And warm water is actually up to preference. If you're somebody who prefers cold, they've done research on this, and they say the most important part of this is that your hands are under that water 20 seconds and scrubbing. Getting as much as you can under, off the nails, in between the fingers. Yeah, that's the big thing. We want to make sure your hands are really clean before you do anything. And of course, if you have a cut or sore, make sure you wear gloves, or those chemicals tend to hurt your hands a little bit more, and you could contaminate surfaces. Wash countertops, cutting boards, and any kitchen utensils with hot soapy water before and after use. It's a general recommendation, but again, you don't need to buy these Mr. Clean products and all these fancy things when hot soapy water is going to do the same thing. And then wash dishcloths in a hot cycle of a washing machine to reduce that bacterial buildup. And that's up to preference, again, for how often you do it. I would say at least once a week if you're somebody pretty active in your kitchen. If you're in your kitchen every day, I would do it twice a week, just to be on the safe side. Other cleaning tips. So replacing those old and worn cutting boards, so if you have a lot of wooden ones, there's ways to clean it, and I'm not going to go into a detail, but that Kitchen Companion does, to make sure to really scrub those clean or toss them and get new ones. Consider using paper towels to clean kitchen surfaces, so you're not constantly reusing these towels, your nice dish towels. If using sponges or cloths, replace them with clean ones often. And I will go into sanitizing a little bit as well, but hot soapy water. Sanitizing solution, you can actually make your own, and it's a lot cheaper than going out and buying them every time. I do recommend if you use a sanitizer to replace it at least once a week, just for effectiveness when it comes to doing it, and to make sure not to screw up this ratio here. I do 1 teaspoon to 1 quart of water, not 1 quart of chlorine bleach to 1 teaspoon of water. So it should be very little bleach to a lot of water. I had someone accidentally screw that up once and they called me and they were asking what happened in their kitchen. So the best thing they could do was open all the windows because it was going to smell in there for quite a while. Clean, but. So, and you do have this in your PowerPoint, but this is even more detail on what's an effective cleaner. So if you're somebody who doesn't like to use bleach, and I've had quite a few people who don't because of the smell of it, even a small teaspoon, you can use peroxide. Peroxide is another way to use when doing sanitizing, and I give you more detail here. It gives you the concentration, so that's undiluted. So basically they're using 3% hydrogen peroxide in a squirt bottle. And then you can either heat it up and clean, and then you only have to leave it a minute to set and then wipe it down. Or you could do one at room temperature and leave it 10 minutes and then wipe it down. So it depends how you want to do it. And you can also use, there's that vinegar. We talked about vinegar as, when you talk about food safety, you can use vinegar as well as a sanitizing solution. But again, and that's using it at room temperature, so you spray it. But as you see, the vinegar isn't quite as effective at killing all the bacteria compared to the ones above. So the peroxide or the bleach are going to be a lot more effective in cleaning, getting Listeria out, getting E. coli out, getting Salmonella out than the rest of them. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, this kills about 99.9% of bacteria that's on your surfaces when you sanitize. And baking soda, that one was brought up a few times, that's why I put it in bold on the bottom. It's not an effective sanitizer at any temperature to use as a cleaner, or to use as a sanitizer specifically. So unsafe practices for public consumption. Again, if you're preparing food that you're going to bring to the farmer's market, smoking or using tobacco when preparing food. Yeah, some of these seem a little obvious, but we never want anyone out there smoking as they're preparing jam or something like that in the kitchen. It's going to affect the food. Eating while preparing food. I know that's always tempting to sample things, but again, when we're selling to the public, you don't want to be tasting as you're going. Not covering wounds, so not having bandages on and not wearing gloves when you're cooking. Preparing food while you're sick, especially with the norovirus, which is extremely contagious, but I almost just feel like breathing on something. If you're not feeling well, don't try to prepare food and having pets in the kitchen. And that can be hard for people. If they have little dogs and they'll run up to you and you'll pet them and you're going back to cooking, you could easily cross-contaminate in there. So looking at shopping for fruit. So again, you don't have to make all your own fruit. I'll repeat that again. That would be a little hesitant. That gets a little crazy. So when buying fruit, try to aim for the ones that, of course, are not damaged, aren't bruised, if you can. Separate. So those meat bags, and I'm seeing them more and more now in the grocery store, use them. There's plenty of studies out there now that have found those meat bags can reduce cross-contamination by almost 100%. So, and also, they were looking at that same study, they were trying to figure out in the grocery store where all the bacteria lives, and it's all on the handle, mainly of that grocery cart. So when you go in the grocery store, grab that little sanitizing and wipe them off. Yeah, it was the grocery cart and the kids. So they have kids who were in the cart. So when the parents were leaving and they would throw their food in the cart and have the kids with the meat in there, that's where they found the raw meat juices mainly, on the handle of that grocery store cart and the kids. So always put them in a bag. And then keep fruit cool when transporting if you can. I mean, that's if you have a long ways to travel. I always give the instance, I live in Hillsborough and I grocery shop in Litchfield. So I do have about a 10-20 minute commute, so I'll bring a cooler with me just for safety wise to make sure, just in case I get distracted, I'm like, I'm gonna run to shop somewhere else. And I've got that 2-hour rule where the fruit shouldn't be in room temperature for more than 2 hours. And only wash fruit under cold running water right before use. So if you bring all your fruit home, you're like, I'm gonna make jam. I've got a bunch of strawberries. Don't wash them and then put them in the fridge because they're gonna go bad a lot faster. So bring them home, put them in the fridge, and don't wash them until you're just about to use them. Separate, don't contaminate again. This is going further into making sure we're using separate cutting boards when using, so if you're creating supper at the same time of working on your jam, make sure that your meat is completely separated from your fruit. So making sure they have their own cutting board, own knives, everything is separated. And always wash hands, of course. Even with eggs, that's one thing that people forget about, is eggs are just like meat. You want to make sure after you crack an egg, wash your hands. After you crack an egg on the surface, wash the surface. Make sure everything is preventing that egg goo from getting onto other foods. And then cooking all foods to proper temperature, of course. I have pictures of my jam there. I was hoping you were going to tell me you're having problems with its settings. Usually with setting, if you're not getting it to 220 degrees. And that's a way to test with that is to make sure using a candy thermometer and making sure you're getting to 220. And that's the set for jams and jellies.
No, this was like when you're coming before you were born. I gave up doing jam. I'm talking about when I was in 4-H.
Yeah.
When I was first married, and it was like, no, this doesn't work for me.
You're like, I've had enough of this for now.
Yeah. Rest of my life.
For the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Lisa, did you say 220 was the proper degrees?
Yes, yep. 220 is what you want to reach. Okay, so of course you'll want to chill all your foods properly as well. So if you're not making jam immediately, again, store your unwashed fruit in that refrigerator. Keep it out of the danger zone. Does anybody know what the danger zone is? What temperatures? It's what? Pretty close, 40 to 140. Yep. So that danger zone, so most of our room temperature in this room right now is probably close to 70. So this would be considered part of the danger zone. So if I would have chicken out, or if I would even have fruit out, if I had strawberries sitting here, they were out for more than 2 hours, you should throw them out because bacteria grows by the billions after that. And again, the stuff that's going to make us sick, we can't see it. So we don't even know if it's in there or not.
What about like peaches and apples are okay?
Yep, those are okay to sit out at room temperature. Yep. Because they're already high acid. And I always tell people when you go in the grocery store, if it's already sitting at room temperature, it's fine to sit on a counter at room temperature. It's only if you cut into that peach, then you should throw it in the fridge. But yeah, it's protected by itself. So yeah, my next one, refrigerate cut fruit properly. So making sure if you do cut your peaches or pears or something or apples, put them in the refrigerator right away. If freezing fresh fruit to process later, then make sure your freezer is at 0. And do not overpack your freezer. So again, if you have too much stuff in there, that door is not going to close properly, and it's not going to have enough air around it to keep it at 0. So another thing to check your freezer temperature. Make sure your thermometer is reading 0. And that would be like the middle, so don't put it right in the front. Put your thermometer usually in the center of your freezer, and same with your fridge. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is you should all have a handout in your packet, in your folder. And before I go into briefly going over doing boiling water bath, we have a test your knowledge, the Illinois Cottage Food Operation Law. And I think there's 5 questions in there. And I'll have you go through and just circle the answers. And I'll give you a couple minutes here to do it, and then we'll go back and kind of review them. Yeah, there should be 5 questions. Okay. So I'll kind of quickly go through these here, the 5 of them that were on that little handout here. So the 5 big ones. So the first question is, the Illinois Cottage Food Operation defines a cottage food operation as, which letter is it?
C.
C. Yep. A business operated by a person at a farmer's market who produces and packages specific low-risk foods in a home kitchen. Like I said, those if it's on that list, they're very detailed with the cottage law, what they can and cannot sell. So if there's something on there that you don't see on that list and you don't see on the potentially hazardous food, you would have to double check with IDPH to make sure that it would be okay to sell, because that's going to be the ones who are in charge of it. Okay, so which one of the following is not required by the cottage food law operation?
A.
A, right. So a home kitchen that is certified and inspected by the local county health department. Your kitchen does not need to be certified by the health department to sell. Okay, and a potentially hazardous food?
D.
Yep, it's D. It's a food that requires proper time and proper temperature control to keep it safe. Like I said, it has to be stored in the fridge or in the freezer, or can only be cooked at a certain degree, has to be cooked up to something to eat. That's potentially hazardous. Okay. So circle or list the foods that are permitted to be made for sale by the cottage food operation. There is more than one answer on this one. Which ones are they? So which ones are allowed?
A.
A, yep. So jams, jellies, preserves, peach, made with peaches, blackberry, apricot, and apple, and D. Yep. So fruit butter is made with apple, grapes, peaches, and plums. And it does talk about here, so meat products, pickled products, canned vegetables, and dairy products cannot be sold at a farmer's market. Even if they are pressure canned, they can't guarantee they're safe, so they're not allowed at the farmer's market. And then we do mention rhubarb, tomatoes, watermelon on here, and then pumpkin and sweet potato pie as well. So there's our answer for that one. Okay, so what information must be on that package to conform to the labeling requirements? What letter is it?
ABC.
Close. It's actually E.
E.
So both B and C only. So what's wrong with A? Yep. For those who didn't hear in Hillsborough, she said the post office box. It says a P.O. box on here, and you cannot have a food with a P.O. box on there for that label. Yes. Yep. It is.
I didn't hear it.
Yep, you cannot have your labeling laws. It's actually in this one too. I know it's in the notes, but the cottage food law handout has it on the 3rd page. It talks about labeling law. And it says it cannot have a P.O. box, so no post office box on there. So yeah, both B and C. So it's got to have a common usual name and a weight, and it has to have the name and address of the operator and no out of state. Okay. That just gives you kind of a brief overview of the laws. Like I said, they're giving you a lot more detail than with our actual fact sheet, which goes even further into it. And at the end of the fact sheet, there is a website as well that we have through U of I, and it gives you even more details if you're looking for, if you've got even more questions. We've done pretty good with keeping up with that website as they've changed things with the law. Like I said, it's only been effective since about 2011, and they just updated it in 2016 because they made a couple exceptions with people wanting to sell at their farms and how to do that. But before going any further, I will briefly talk about boiling water bath canning for those of you who do want to do jams and jellies at home. And just, I said, we're not going to go into a lot of detail because I have about a 3-hour class that goes into details on this. So hopefully I'll be doing it again this summer. And we actually I do hands-on classes too with this. So why do we preserve food? What are some of the reasons why we do it?
We have excess or surplus food.
Yep, you have surplus of food. That's a great one. To use what you've grown. So if you have all this food, you got to do something with it rather than having it go bad on you. Why else do you preserve food? The reason we're here today. To sell.
To sell it.
So we got to sell it from Hillsborough. All right.
Yeah. So to sell it, of course. Another one is to prepare food the way you like it. So if you're somebody who's really interested, wants to be careful about using sugar in your canned foods because you don't want a lot of it in there, or you're somebody who wants to make your own diabetic version with Splenda. That's a great way to do it. So you know exactly what's going in your food when you make it yourself. So to prepare the amount you like as well, that was another one. To address dietary concerns, I said something about diabetes, that's always a concern. Save/make money, there's our big one, that was mentioned. Or to sell at the farmer's market. And then self-satisfaction. It's nice to grow your own food and you know exactly how it was made, and it feels good that you've made jam from what you made.
Yeah. I do have another question before we move into exactly the canning thing.
Yep.
When you see farmers who just have stands by the road,
Mhm.
or like, you know, the trucks that pull up in Walmart in the back of the truck and they're selling
Yep.
something.
Yep.
Now, could you do that with your product?
You can't do that with a cottage food operation. Cottage foods, and that's the exception that comes in there with the farmer, because the farmer, like I said, if they're making, they grow apples, so they're selling apples on the back of their truck.
Okay.
Well, they're also selling apple butter. They've got to have a cottage food certificate to do it. They can, because it is coming right, they're selling it directly to the consumer.
Okay.
But
So
they can't
if we
sell
had our
it.
certificate,
Yes.
we could sell muffins, cookies, whatever.
As long as you are under the cottage food law, and you labeled it correctly, and it's, you're not selling it online, it's directly to the consumer from what you've made. Yep. Any more questions on cottage food, right at the moment, before we go too far into this side of it?
Does Hillsborough have any questions?
Nope, we're okay at this time.
All
Great,
You
thanks.
can always feel free to email me too, and I can search for the answer if I don't know it. Okay, so advantages of canning. Of course, our finished products are stored at room temperature. If you don't have a lot of fridge or freezer space. So like when people tell me that they want to go into food preservation, I'm like, well, how much space do you have? Do you have a lot of shelf space? Do you have a lot of freezer space? So that's something to think about is where can you store it? Food ready to eat for quick meals. That's another thing if you can. You do pressure canning with vegetables and with meat. Great quick meals that way. Canned food, usually a high quantity product. So it makes, usually when people are canning, they'll do a lot in one sitting. Economical, except for labor. So you might have to spend 2 days in the kitchen to do it. But you will be saving money in the long run. So when you really, really want that fresh strawberry jam, when it's 0 degrees outside, you got it in your you've got it in your cabinet. Good method for large amount of food, and we've mentioned that one too. So disadvantage, there are a few disadvantages when it comes to canning. The equipment may be expensive. When you can, I'll kind of talk about the list here. You do typically need a lot of stuff to do it, just to make sure everything's safe and that it comes across fine. The process can be time consuming. I mean, with most jams and jellies, it's about 10 minutes, but if you're doing pressure canning, it could be a couple hours. So, knowledge and skills needed, so you're feeling confident enough to be able to do it and you know how to do the entire process. We'll always help you with extension to help you out there. Must stay up to date on canning recommendations. And that's something that we've really struggled with tomatoes and talking about how to can tomatoes. And now our new rule is, and I'll talk about it in this slide coming up, but you have to have some type of juice, lemon juice or vinegar in your tomato product. No matter what, if you're pressure canning it, if you're boiling water bath with a salsa, you still have to add some type of acid.
What about the citric acid?
Yep, and citric acid, yep. So canning jars. So regular and wide mouth mason jars are still recommended with home canning jars. We don't recommend you use anything outside of ones that aren't made for canning. So that would be using mayo jars and things like that. You want to use either the mason or, oh, there's a couple other brands too out there. Ball, the ball jars, that's a big one. But half pint, 1 1/2, quart and half gallon sizes. Again, they come in all different sizes. And then jams and jellies, usually you'll do about a half pint to a pint. In the lids, of course, there's 2-piece lids. We don't recommend you using the paraffin wax anymore because it molds really easy. And the paraffin wax usually was the little metal lid in my picture. But they should be 2-part lids. And the reason we're going to tell you to use a 2-part lid is if you're using one lid, you can't take off part of it and see if it's sealed. There's no way to tell if it's definitely sealed other than that lip on the top. So in the sealant compound, I do show you that in that picture, but that used to have to be warmed up, and depending on what kind of jar you're using, Ball no longer has you heating up your jar lids. So that's kind of a cool new thing. So if you go out and buy jars now at Ace Hardware or Walmart, you do not need to heat up your lids. Because the sealing compound itself has changed the way they've done it, so.
They used to have the jar warm too.
The jar, yeah, you still have to sterilize depending on what you're doing,
It
but.
just had to be real hot.
Yeah.
Two parts.
Yeah, now it's just, it's a little, the metal lid doesn't have to be simmered as it used to be.
So the jars, if you're making jelly, the jar has to be sterilized in a water bath on the stove.
Yep, and that's if you're doing less than 10 minutes. So if your product has to go on so you're preparing your product and it only calls for 8 minutes, you have to sterilize it. So that means you have to put it in that water and bring it up to a certain temperature, to boiling usually, for so many minutes. And if you want more information, I can give you more on that as well. We've got kind of a how-to on sterilizing jars. But like I said, there tends to be a lot of equipment when it comes to canning. So if you're somebody who is new to it, you'll want a canning rack so you can easily pull them out, wide mouth funnel so you can fill them in, the lid lifter so you can get them out of there. It's always a good thing to have. You don't stick your hand in the boiling water. Canning jar lifter, having that ladle to pour it, the bubble freer, so going around the inside and pushing all your product in so it takes out some of those bubbles. A jar wrench to tighten it. And then the approved canning guide if you want that. We'll talk about other resources as well. That's one we like to bring up there. So again, selling at a farmer's market, we're going to do the boiling water bath method of canning. And the reason we do that is because when we're doing boiling water bath, the food in there has a pH below 4.6. And that's how acidic it is. So it's definitely a little bit more acidic than other products we've been doing, like vegetables. So most fruit has a pH below 4.6. Tomatoes are borderline, and I even put in there that they're not permitted in the cottage food operation. So, but if you are doing them at home, just for yourself, there's that recommendation right there, is per quart, add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, half a teaspoon of that citric acid, or 4 tablespoons of 5% acidity vinegar in there. So you do have to put something else into those tomatoes if you're canning tomatoes at home. Yeah. And I told people, because that's the thing, and you can add sugar if you want to, and that'll offset that kind of acidic taste to it, and that's completely safe to do. It just adds a little bit, so it's not quite as strong when you're taking it out. But
now, if you're freezing those tomatoes, you don't have to add the acid.
No, not if you're freezing them, yeah, because they're not going to sit at room temperature then, so you'll be okay. Yeah, but foods with lemon juice or vinegar added to recipe, again, these are not permitted at farmers market, so pickles, salsa, sauerkraut. Okay. But those are high acid ones too, ones we add to it. But there's the whole process there of putting in a boiling water bath. This is kind of the anatomy of the inside of your canner, but making sure that you have a rack on the bottom, because what would happen if you put a hot jar on the bottom of a hot pan? It's more than likely going to crack on you. So that's one of the reasons we tell you to put some kind of space in between the bottom of your canner and the jar, just so you don't crack your jars from the high heat that you're putting onto it. And making sure you have about 1 to 2 inches of water covering your jar, and then you still want 1 to 2 inches of airspace. So that'll help with the boil.
You can't do that on a glass electric stove.
You gotta check with your manufacturer on that.
No, you can't.
Oh, you can't keep it rolling boil.
Yeah,
Yep. Yours tells you no. Yep. I was gonna say it's gonna. In that it could crack it too. Cracks the heaviness.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot.
Well, yeah, with an electric stove, it doesn't tend to, it cycles, and that can be a problem when you're canning, because you're not keeping that constant boil with it.
Because you can boil soup and everything else that you cannot can.
Yeah.
That's what it said in my
Your book, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that's something, that's a hard part, because we've tried it with induction cookers are like that too, where they'll cycle on you, and they won't stay that constant temperature you need it to stay to keep that boil going.
But can you do it on a induction?
Conduction, yeah, you can. It's with the you just got to be really careful with it. Make sure it's not really, really heavy. Because we've done it before in one of my classes, and it's just watching to make sure it's at a constant boil, and it's just more of a headache than it is. It's possible, but it's just more of a headache. But yeah, making sure you have the boiling water bath canner, again, the canner and the rack, and making sure, yeah, like you said, it's hard to make sure you got enough space in between there. Make sure you have the 1 to 2 inches of water covering the jars.
You have to stand there because it wants to boil over.
Yep. That's why you got to have that airspace. You can get pretty good size.
Even with that
pot.
If you're going to have a boil, it's got to be.
Yep. Yeah, you got to make sure your cover stays on there. And there's the sterilizing the jars. So all products that are processed, if your recipe says that it's only going to go, your jars are only going in there 8 minutes, you absolutely have to sterilize those jars to make sure that any bacteria that was on them before is gone now. So if you're doing a product that's over 10 minutes, it's going to kill it within those 10 minutes. So that's why we tell you, if you have any type of jams or jellies that you're making and you're going to do the farmer's market, well, if you are or not doing them at home for the family, always sterilize your jars. So once you do that, once you sterilize your jars, but fill the clean jars, of course, using a wide mouth funnel, easiest way to get food in there, not much else to add there. And then for jams and jellies, you want to leave about 1/4 of an inch of head space. And it's very particular about this. This is a great thing to have a ruler for, to make sure you have that 1/4 of an inch in between the top of your jar and the top of your product. So it's a little space in between there. So going into headspace, why do we need correct headspace when it comes to that? Too little, it can bubble out. Another thing is it gets stuck on the rim and your jar won't seal properly. Too much, the food will likely discolor, and I have a product in my office right now that I made strawberry jam, and it was cut up strawberries, of course it's jam, and the top of it, you can tell it's turning black because it had too much headspace on it. I think I had I was measuring it a couple days ago, and I think I had about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. And it was way too much, so it discolored over time. So that's something to keep in mind. The jars will not seal properly also, and they are sealed, but you can tell that it's turned a little black on top. So
there's nothing wrong with it.
There's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't look pretty. Yeah. And again, if they see that at home, you can't always call the extension office, but if you aren't sure, always follow the rule. When in doubt, throw it out. Get rid of it.
But if you fill it to the very top, if any of it gets on the surface of the top at all,
yep, it won't
seal.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your guideline?
That's how we tell you 1/4 of an inch. So if you fill it and then you have you have way too much in there, take a spoon out and spoon it into another bowl, and then check that 1/4 inch.
I've had it come out though, like she says, and like applesauce won't seal then.
Yep.
It's probably because the heat is too high.
Oh, if it's boiling out, do you have too much heat in there? Is that the?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And if that does happen,
boiling, but you don't know exactly what it's at.
And if it does have so you take it out of your canner and you see it's boiling out, you can always reprocess it within 24 hours. So if you have something that doesn't seal, you can put it back in your canner in 24 hours and still go through the process again. Yeah. And then if it's after 24 hours, then you gotta throw it in your fridge, or else throw it out.
But that you have to put a new top on.
Yeah. Well, you don't if you're doing it. So if you did that and it's boiling out, and you take it out of your canner, clean off the top, and you should be okay with using that same lid still. It should be okay. Within 24 hours, it should be okay still. So of course, filling those jars, making sure that rim is what you're really going to want to watch, and that's what we've noticed. Even when we do judging for 4-H, this is why they won't seal, is we'll find stuff on the rim, and that's why they don't stay sealed. So always wiping those rims before you put on the lid. And usually it works well with a clean wet cloth. That's the easiest way to do it. Have one just right next to you as you're going. And then not too tight. So when you're putting on the lid to put it into the canner, we say fingertip tight. So it's the point of resistance. So you put it on and right to the point where you can't screw it or it won't go by itself. That's fingertip tight. So yeah, it's hard to describe without actually doing it, but it's right to the point, where you cannot. You're screwing it around and you don't have to struggle to push it any further.
And then when it cools, it sinks. Then when it cools, it sinks.
Yeah, yep. And as it comes out, you'll hear it pop. And that'll be a sign that it's sealed, of course. That's the easiest way to tell. But yeah, there'll be that middle will be sink down kind of too. Well, you'll have a
In your supplies, you say jar wrench.
Yes. And that's at the end, and it's up to you if you want to use it or not. That would be after you let it sit to cool. So it's been. Because we say not too tight because then you're not letting enough air in. And if you do too tight, it could break the jar when it's sitting there. The jar wrench would be after it's been sitting for 24 hours. So you finish processing, it's at 12 to 24 hours. Then some people like to do it to tighten it. You really don't need to. You don't actually need to keep the rim at all.
I was going to say some people don't use it.
Yep. Yeah, so the jar wrench, I think it's more optional because you don't need a jar wrench on there. But with recipes, of course, you always want to use reliable recipes. Even when you're selling to the farmer's market, we'll push it more and more and more, but you want them that are tested. You want tested recipes, because those are the ones we know are going to be safe, the ones that aren't going to cause botulism, which is one of our biggest issues when it comes to canned foods.
Why is it that green beans, I mean, my mother always told me those were the most dangerous. You really got to be careful.
It's their
Low
acidity.
acid.
Yep.
How can you tell? I mean, because I've seen some that look okay, but like, you know, just throw those out. Because
Don't you do those in pressure cooker?
Yeah,
You
yep.
never do it in water.
No, she's just asking why they're not so safe. It's mainly the
We used to
botulism.
do them in the water.
Yeah.
That's why
Yep, they're low acid.
we do them in the pressure.
Yep, usually I'll tell people with green beans, it's how much freezer space or if you want to can them.
Right.
So like they do taste, if you blanch them always right before, they taste fine frozen as well and work well. But yeah, you'll always want to use a pressure canner because they're low acid. Yep, so we'll get them to a high enough temperature above boiling to kill any bacteria in there. But yeah, so when you're using recipes, you do have 2 forms in the back of your information you were given. And that is, if you'd like to order the book, the new one just came out, the 6th edition of So Easy to Preserve. And University of Georgia is the one who produces these books. And these books, I mean, they are I would say they're our go-to with anything with canning. So they produce all these recipes, and they're a great resource if you're looking for new things to can. The USDA Complete Guide to Home Canning is also a great option. If you're somebody who has a Ball Blue Book, so those are always common. I always see them with the canning stuff. We do recommend those. They're safe to use. They're doing safe recipes when preparing them. Otherwise, you're always free to call the extension office. I've had to dig for all of our information, finding recipes for people as well to make sure they're safe and have been tested. But that's our main reason we do tell you to test them, to use reliable recipes, is because of the botulism scare. Is because it takes just millimeter or nano, I think it's nanometers or not nanometers. Micrograms, there we go, micrograms, to actually could take out like half the United States because it's that lethal. So that's why we tell people to be very careful. But that's going more with when you're doing boiling water bath, you're a little bit less afraid of it just because you're already doing high acid. But we do want to be very careful still. So canning without sugar. So jams, jellies, and preserves can be canned in a boiling water bath. Sugar does not preserve the fruit. So, of course, you always want to follow a recipe, but sugar, what it does is it helps hold its shape, color, and flavor of recipes, or of your product. It's not used as a preservative when you're canning. Splenda is currently our only sugar substitute that can be added to fruit. Saccharin sweeteners turn bitter after they've been canned for a while, and same with aspartame.
What about stevia? Anybody tested anything with that?
We don't have the research on it yet to tell us that stevia is okay. Unless you can find a recipe through an extension service that uses stevia, that'd be the only thing that I would say, okay, that's fine.
Is Splenda a plant?
No, stevia is the plant. Yeah.
Okay, so
It's like the sugar substitute.
Yep.
but you would have to make sure that you wrote on there if there was an artificial sweetener. And in some places, in some things they don't, because some people are highly allergic to artificial
Yeah,
sweeteners.
especially PKU with aspartame. Yeah, that would be something that you would want on your label for sure, to just say you've used a sugar substitute. So once again, if you're using a tested recipe, it's a little easier because it's already written out for you. So you just say how much of it you added. So if you're using Splenda, that'd be the way to put it on
And
there.
if you see the words natural sweetener or natural ingredients, what does that mean? What does that cover?
Natural is one of those words that is not currently regulated by the USDA, so people have their own definitions of it, which makes it even harder for us to watch. Usually when I see the word natural, again, I don't always trust it just because I don't know.
Natural flavoring.
Natural flavoring.
Yeah.
You have to call the company and ask them. That would be the details. My sister has celiac disease, and that's one thing with natural flavorings. You never know if there's gluten in it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And she's called many companies, and usually there's a trace of gluten in it or something like that, and they don't mention it on the label. So that's natural flavorings. If they're adding things to it, they just don't have to be super specific about it. But usually, when we're going into farmers markets, you never put that on the label, because I have a feeling the health department might come after you for that one, because they like explain to us what your natural flavorings are. Okay, so, and this is kind of going back into processing time, so talking about the end of that. There's those books I was mentioning, That's So Easy to Preserve, the USDA Guide to Home Canning, and the Blue Book. So each recipe has its own processing time, and always follow what the recipe says. Let's follow directions carefully. Time differs based on your size of jar. So just because you're like, well, I want to use pint jars instead of quart jars, make sure that the recipe says to do that, because that will change your processing time. And too little can, of course, result in spoilage. It'll just go bad a lot faster. It won't be safe. So using that boiling water bath canner. So this is something that where we struggled with in canning is, there's some of the big ones, at least the hit that I wanted to hit on was begin timing when the full boil is reached. So you get to a boil and you're ready to put your cans in or your jars in, put them in the canner, and then you close it and start the timer. Always make sure you are at a full boil before you start that timer.
But when you put your cans in, then it stops.
Yep, yep.
So I put mine in and then wait till it comes to a full boil with them in there. Is that okay?
Yes, that's what you want to do. Exactly. Yep. Yep. That's why, so you're waiting until you get a full boil and then you start timing it. Yes. Yep. You want to always make sure you have a full boil first and not start it right, because you're in a hurry and you want to get it done, so they're not going to seal properly, or they won't stay sealed. So after processing time is complete, turn off the canner, or turn off your heat source, and then remove the lid and wait we tell you about 5 minutes, and mainly it's for your safety that we're going to tell you to wait the 5 minutes, so you don't put your hands in there and have water splashing on you and burning yourself. That's one easy way to think of it. So I've been asked that a few times, like, well, what does that have to do with processing? And it doesn't. We're just telling you for safety to wait those 5 minutes. So it's cooled down a little bit. Again, in cooling jars, so again, when taking jars out, you take the lid off, you wait 5 minutes, straight up and straight down when you're taking jars out of a canner. You never want to tilt the jars. Even if there's water on top of them, that water will evaporate. So even if there's water there, you still want to go straight up, straight out. And you either want to put it on a rack or a towel for a cooling period. We never want to put it on a cooled surface, because just like if you put a hot crock pot into a fridge, it could crack or it could shatter, those glass could. So we do recommend you do put them on some type of surface, either that's a little lifted or you have a towel there that's preventing that cold surface from hitting those hot jars right away. And you want them spaced out about 1 to 2 inches so the jars aren't touching each other. And usually you'll want to wait 12 to 24 hours before you move them. So even if they pop, I would still give them a good 12 hours or so before you touch them. Just because they pop doesn't mean they're going to stay sealed. So they still need some time to cool and to process coming out of that canner. But there are other ways to test that seal. Of course, I always look for that lid curved. That's an easy way to tell if that lid is curved inward. But of course, if you press it, it doesn't move, doesn't pop back up, it's sealed. This one I haven't tried still. I'm going to this season when we do canning. But if you have a clear ringing sound when you tap it with the back of a spoon, apparently that's a way to tell if your jar is sealed. But we'll see how it goes. I might do it with some kids this summer. They probably have better hearing than I do, so we'll see how well that goes. Jars, of course, storing home canned jams, jellies, and fruit butters. You want to store them in a cool, dry, dark place. Light actually increases deterioration of food. So even with your glass jars, if you have them sitting in a window, they're going to deteriorate a lot faster. They're safe indefinitely, honestly. They're sitting in, if they're properly canned, there's no rust on them, they're sealed, they're safe. We do tell you to use them best within 1 year, mainly for quality purposes. Same with canned food. If you buy canned food in the grocery store and you buy, say, a jar or a can of peas, it's safe indefinitely, but the quality after a year or so, it's going to drop. So it goes down a lot faster then.
I'm glad to do that, because I don't always pay attention.
That's why I use my name.
My kids come over and they open my refrigerator and they throw half the stuff away.
In the fridge, that might be a little different if things are already open.
Salad dressing.
Oh.
That's got
Yes,
that doesn't smell.
Yeah, but like if you have a basement full of canned food, it is best to use them within 1 year, but they are safe indefinitely as long as they stay sealed and there's no sign of spoilage on them. So going back into the business side of it, so they kind of talked about this in the last class they just did, I believe it was last month, was developing a business plan and marketing plan. So if you are starting to look into selling some jam or jelly, think about how you're going to go about doing it. Think about your booth design, so what's going to attract people to your booth, what's going to want them to come up and talk to you. Cost analysis, are you making a profit? So think about how much money are you spending on jars, on equipment. Is it really worth it for how much you're going to be making out of it? Transporting your items to and from the farmer's market. So especially if you're doing jars, that's always something to think about. Either having a crate or something on there that will, having it in the truck, probably not in the bed of the truck, probably not the best idea when you got potholes and such. Keeping it in a safe place in the vehicle to prevent them from clinking together. Will you provide samples? So if you're going to do a jam, jelly, a fruit butter, even a piece of pie, if you're going to have samples, make sure they're in small containers, and they're pretty inexpensive. I know I can buy a pack for like $3 for like 300 of them. So no, the sampling cups aren't expensive at all. And then time management, so how much time do you want to have? I mean, if you have a ton of berries in your garden and you want to get rid of all of them at the farmer's market, how much time are you really going to be spending going to the farmer's market to do it? About your time a little bit more.
I have a question about if you were going to do herbs, a dried herb, but you wanted to make up a sample using that, where does that fall?
If you want to make up a sample using that herb, that's a good question.
Like put it in cream cheese or
yeah, to have it with. That is a good question, because that makes me wonder with it being a potential, you're turning it into a potentially hazardous food. So I don't.
I guess it might depend on what you put it with.
It depends what you're going to put it with. Yep. So if I don't think it's allowed if you're putting it with a potentially hazardous food. So if you're putting it with cream cheese, something that would technically usually be kept in the fridge and then being brought out, water would be kept out.
Maybe you could put it on some Chex Mix or something and let it get the flavor from a cereal product or something.
Yeah, and the only other option I would say to contact to ask about that would be the health department. See if they have other ideas for you outside of, because those are the people who are going to be walking around at the farmer's market. And so I said, I go to the farmer's market pretty regularly. I like the one here in Taylorville, it's really nice, but I've never said anything to somebody. So, I mean, they're going to be, the health department is pretty regular, I think, about going out there and walking around and talking to people. So, yeah, I'm not the police when I'm out there. I might be the one that handy resources. But other resources, I'm not sure if I included this slide or not in your information. It's not on here.
Is it in this Cottage Food Law?
It might be. But actually, I can't remember if I put this in here or not, but these are the additional information. Ask Karen is a great option for any food safety questions. Go FSIS and do Ask Karen, and she answers questions left and right. And I mean, honestly, they've asked everything on that website, and it's through the USDA and the food service, of course. And they're available 24/7. We always joke about they have a big Thanksgiving hotline that you can call or for turkey questions when it comes to that time of year.
It's just AskKaren.gov. It's not.
Yeah. Yep.
Under the FSIS.
Yeah. I think it's AskKaren.gov. And you have to double check that. But if you can just Google Ask Karen, it should come up right away. And that's a great one.
So we have to go through Springfield? Don't we have a department?
Yep, that's why I would contact your local extension office. Obviously here, I'm happy to answer any questions and hopefully be able to answer. If I can't answer it, I would call our local health department, so the Christian County Health Department. And I did talk to them a little bit, just answering my questions to make sure that they followed what I saw Springfield had. And they do follow it pretty close. Otherwise, of course, the IDPH in Springfield, your other option as well. And they're a lot more detailed, I believe, with the farmers market, just because they have been experiencing bigger farmers markets in Springfield. But yeah, either one of those are both helpful to you. You have that slide, right? So they can see it? Okay, good.
Sure.
But yeah, as I said, if you can't get the question answered, and always call here first. I'm always happy to answer. And if I can't figure out, I will probably call the health department. They'll be happy to hear from me. Just answering some questions when it comes to selling things. I'm trying to think what else was given to you that I handed out here. Other ones?
I think Cindy was here when you said you are thinking this summer of possibly giving a certificate class.
Yes, I'll go back to that slide here. I'm trying to think what number that was. It's one of our first slides. Yeah, in order to sell at the farmer's market, you do, other than paying the $25 and having and filling out their cottage food application. Yeah, and the classes, when I will offer them, they will probably be in this room, more than likely. In this county it will be. Okay, there we go. Yep, what is a cottage food operation? To be a cottage food seller, you do have to have a food service sanitation management certificate. And there's 2 ways we can do the class. I'm probably going to end up doing it the 15-hour class, which is you come in for 2 days and do classes, and then you take a test. And then we find out, I believe, within 24 to 48 hours if you pass, and then you pay a fee through IDPH, and you get a certificate. And that's what you'll bring in with your Cottage Law application and the $25 to the department.
So you're doing this next.
It should be in your PowerPoint, this slide is. I will be doing it, I was explaining to my coworkers, it's been kind of a process to become certified as an instructor in Illinois. And I am at the point where I'm sending everything in to be an instructor. So hopefully, and I've told them, I'm confident I will be teaching them by the summer. So, and I'll probably be offering them quarterly. So, because I have 4 counties, so that means I'll be doing it 16 times a year. So it should be throughout the area. But I'll probably be doing them in spring, summer, fall, and winter. Yeah, I said right now it's only offered from Extension. We have somebody in Decatur who's doing it. And then we have somebody in Paris, Illinois. So I'm going to be the furthest educator south and kind of central that's able to teach it, which will be nice. Hopefully everything will be fine with my application. And before we kind of wrap up here, I do have a survey at the end of this. I would extremely appreciate if you'd fill out for me. I believe it was on your last pages, and it was an evaluation. And it's just kind of seeing what knowledge you've taken away. Yeah. Yep. And it should be on the back of your folders. And it's wonderful if you'd fill that out for me and just leave it on the table.
So hold on, Hillsboro's talking.
Yep.
And we have a question.
Yeah.
Once we have the certificate, is there a form that we'd have to get from the local Department of Public Health then?
Yes, and I help you with that. So what will happen is you'll find out if you're approved, and I believe it's now an online process, but as we go through the class, I help you through that entire thing. Because you'll fill out a form, which you'll have to pay, I think, a $35 fee to have your handlers. I think it's $35, and but I help you through that entire process. So.
Okay, along with getting the certification, it comes along with that.
Yes, yep.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's any more questions, you can always feel free to call my office. I'm happy to answer, which is in Hillsboro, or else email is the best way to get a hold of me. And that should be all of your information.
And we just want to thank Lisa Peterson again for sharing her time and knowledge with us today, and all of you for attending both here in Taylorville and also remotely in Hillsboro. And we hope you'll join us for our other upcoming sessions, including Importance of Branding on the March 13th, Agritourism on April 10th, and Social Media on May 8th.